What's going on, TAC listeners? This is Dr. Ray Daniels, and this week I'm joined by Dr. Lance Von Stade. It's our first time back on the mic with each other after quite some time, and we discuss our main takeaways from this time off, the space, the reflection, the integration that we've had, and just how important it is to constantly have that space where we kind of sit back or take a step back and really look at our current situation, our strategies, and the outcomes that we're getting. So I think you'll really enjoy that one. And then we dive into what is known by Dr. Lance, I liked his word here, is the Chiropractic Care-iculum, and how we're providing an education and people are paying for tuition for this constant education of chiropractic and the chiropractic lifestyle that will have a return on investment that can change their lives and their families' lives and the generations going forward for a very long time. So huge amount of value in that. So overall, I think you will enjoy this episode, and I hope that you enjoy most of them. But I've been getting a lot of feedback about getting the podcast going, and people are super grateful. So thank you for reaching out. And if you guys have suggestions on guests and topics, please let us know so we can serve you at a higher level. With that being said, sit back and enjoy this episode. And yeah, peace. Dr. Lance Von Stade, so good to see you again, man, and so excited to be getting this thing rolling and to be chatting on a regular basis.
Yeah, man. Welcome back yourself.
Thank you, man. It's been so cool. Just that first episode we got back out there, people have been messaging us, and it's just like they've been missing it. I'm sure they were like, I wonder if they're going to keep going or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they missed the sweet, soothing voice of Dr. Raymond Daniels.
Ooh. Been waiting a while to say that one. Felt so weird on the first intro of the last episode. I'm like, whoa.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I felt like the doctor was in all caps for sure.
Right. But yeah, man, looking forward to this conversation. We're gonna dive into just kind of recapping this time off that we've had. I'm super excited to kind of hear your journey and kind of what you've gone through. But I'll share a little bit first. Graduating in June. I went to Mexico for another service trip with John Martinez, and that was like my first service trip with him after doing a seminar in my second or third quarter with him. But again, just to see the mastery, like, gosh, it's crazy to see where the adjustment can go. And that was a good reminder and keeping me driven towards that. But that was a fun experience. And then, I went on a trip and we went to Yosemite, we went climbing in Bishop and just got outdoors, and that was pretty fun too.
Nice.
And then but got back to Reno, and my body just went through some serious like downtime, recuperation, expressed health pretty intensely for about a month and a half. Like,
no kidding.
Yeah, it was pretty gnarly. But was able to overcome it and feeling really good now, and jumped into practice in September, trained for about a month, and then this is the first month that I'm got to see people, and it's been just a blast. But I mean, learning something new every single day, so it's a lot in that sense, but it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's funny how the education doesn't stop when you get out of school. It's the accelerator.
It's just accelerated, right? New person every single day, different set of circumstances, different, like everything's just different. You're just like trying to adapt, but it's just so awesome to have the foundation that, KTC and Adjusting Ninjas has set for me. So it's been awesome.
Nice, man. I'm glad to hear that. How long was the gap between, because you expressed a lot of health coming back from India.
I know, right?
How long was the gap between those? Do you think that was a contributing factor?
It might have been. I just think, because India was in November of last year. And then, pretty solid through, all the way through part 2s and 3s and 4s and ice and all of that. But definitely, like, it was just coming to a point where my body is just like, all right, dude, you've got to integrate, you've got to process it and chill. And I was just talking to Dr. Rick Swecker, the doc in our office, one of my mentors, and he's just like, the longer you're in that state of expansion, it's just like you need that equal amount of time in that contraction. And I think anybody who goes through school, it's just like it's a long state of expansion.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and if you take a hit like India, that it's probably a testament to your character and your will to get through all those boards in like a solid, basically state or fight or flight that you had to maintain.
Right.
Basically just drinking my cortisol tea for 6 months after that trip to get through graduation.
Yeah. And, but yeah, and another big thing is just like, I know we've talked about it a lot on the podcast of just enjoying the moments and enjoying those, those goals that you reached. And I really thought about it and I was like, damn, 6 years ago, I set out for this goal to become a chiropractor. And that was like my dream. And now like I've reached that state and it was almost so easy to go into the next goal or dream. Right. So it's like, it was really nice to take that time and just be like, dude, you did it. Like you're a chiropractor right now. Like enjoy this dream that you put so much effort into becoming. Like savor that moment for a little while before you jump into, all right, what does practice look like? What are those goals look like, But so yeah, that's my little journey, man. I'm excited to hear about yours.
Nice, man. Well, it's on my mind just because you said like 6 years ago, you set up for this dream. Getting ready for level 3, I'm revisiting a lot of the connective tissue spirals and myofascial lines. And something I came across the other day that I've always loved is we talk about neural adaptations happening every 3 weeks, that short cycle of neuroplasticity, 6 weeks for musculoskeletal change, 6 months for connective tissue change. And you can also think about 3 weeks for your whole stomach lining to completely regenerate itself. Like all the molecules that are there now will break down and reorganize and rebuild in 3 weeks. And your entire liver, all the molecules that are currently working in their organization now will completely break down and rebuild. You have a completely new liver in 6 weeks. And every molecule in your entire body will be new in 7 years. In 7 years, that period of time is a completely new physical structure of the human being. And to think about your timeline almost lining up exactly with that, like I set this goal out to become a chiropractor. It's like 6 years, 7 years, whatever. Basically, you have completely reinvented yourself into this whole new human being. It's still your spirit and soul and personhood inside of you, but your whole, like, the vehicle that you are is a chiropractor now. It's pretty cool.
That's a pretty cool perspective, man. I haven't thought of it like that in a while, but yeah, that's awesome.
You were a baseball player before, and now you have physically reorganized yourself into the needs of a chiropractor, especially because you've done the training, which is really cool to think about too, because the way that we reorganize ourselves is based on the mechanical forces we're having to adapt to. Mm-hmm. So yeah, congratulations, man.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. That's pretty awesome to think about. And yeah, I mean, just going back to the training, it's just like trying to think of the chiropractor that I would be without it. Like, oh man, I don't know if I'd even recognize that same person, So it's been so influential, and it's just beginning, right? It's just on this journey to mastery that'll never end. But that's cool. I like thinking about that in that 6 to 7 year period. What that's going to look like in the next 7 years.
Yeah. So to jump in for my recap, I've tried to organize my thoughts in a way that it could be whether I should clump it into home or clump it into KTC. And there's so much integration for me and back and forth. And a lot of people recognize from, if they're listeners of this podcast, a lot of times I share that being a father is first and foremost for me. And since we basically left off in June-ish, since then I turned 34 in July, which meant it was the end of my 33rd year. And for me, the 33rd year, especially just having in the last decade come into contact with chiropractic and learning about the 33 principles, it's been a significant kind of milestone for me, and especially being in the position I'm in where I'm facilitating a lot in chiropractic and having opened my own practice during my 33rd year, and really getting to express myself and trying to find out what this world is like. I took that year and did what I'm considering interval challenges. So these were the Golden Gate lifestyle challenges that I started, and there was a lot of different purposes to them. One of them was because I'm opening a practice and I know I'm going to have a lot of stress, but I also knew that Monica and I were thinking about having our second kid. And so if I was going to have the the space in my life and the capacity and the resilience to manage not only opening a new practice, but starting a new life with a new baby and continuing to show up for my 2-year-old, now 3-year-old. I had to become a better version of myself. And so started to train myself and find what were the areas of my life I needed the most improvement. And I think always starting from fundamentals, so eating, moving, thinking, recuperating, I just created challenges. And every other month I did a 21-day challenge. And we just started another one this month, actually, because I feel like this year is building up, having just had my child, Connor.
Congratulations, by the way. I don't think I've ever got to say that to you yet.
Super we're stoked, man. It's going really well. And I'm also realizing, like, because it's going well, I have a little bit of space to pick it up on my own I need to continue to increase my resilience so that when life does bring the next blow or the next swing, I can either dodge it or take the hit. So this last year was really amazing. And I felt like I learned a lot. I got to organize, basically developing the habit of developing habits, which felt really good. So I feel like now when I can identify a red flag of a weakness in my life, it's not just how do I put the fire out, but how do I build a habit that continues to meet this need over time? That's been a strategy that has served me better than just trying to get a quick fix. And then KTC and Monica's pregnancy and negotiating my paternity leave. That was like the big question mark that I had set certain goals of wanting to take 6 months of paternity leave, of stepping out of practice and really creating space for Dr. Adrian and Dr. Mandy Chan to build their practices. Dr. Adrian's been practicing with me for about a year. And we just brought Dr. Mandy on recently to help with my paternity leave, but also have luckily convinced her it's a good idea to stay, even when I do come back. And so Connor was born. It was an incredible experience, very different from Levi's birth, and the recuperation from that experience as well has been wonderful. We really increased our bandwidth and our understanding of that time period. We over prepared, and realizing that we've done so, we've had more space to simply savor and relish this time. I did 3 weeks after his birth of no cell phone at all, not even like calling people, no Facebook, nothing, just 3 weeks solid of me, my family, my thoughts, my relationships. And I feel like I learned more in that 3 weeks about life than any other time in my entire life. The most memorable moment from that was knowing, when I close my eyes, I do a visualization. I can picture my son, Levi. But during that 3 weeks of time, I spent so much time with him, particularly because Monica was feeding and with Connor, establishing that relationship. And I was responsible more often for Levi, keeping him engaged and taking him outside to play or just sitting there and talking with him. And I remember at one moment looking into his eyes, and just like in camps, sometimes we'll do the eye-to-eye exercise where you stare into someone and almost let everything fade into one image for 5 minutes or so. I got to look at Levi and see a whole new depth to him, because I started noticing these subtleties in the iris of his eye or the shape of his eyebrows and how his face was structured. There was a glimpse of, holy shit, I have not been present. Or I've been present to the level of presence that I've allowed myself to be while not really dropping fully in. And I'm realizing in that moment that it's a bottomless well. It goes as deep as we want to go. And there's a moment of sadness and excitement at the same time, because it's easy to say, well, shit, if this has been here the whole time and I haven't recognized it, then where did all that time go? And at the same time, it's like I'm so thankful and grateful and excited that I've had that realization now. And now that I've seen that level of depth in him, when I look at him to that depth. And so I'm just so much more connected with him. And I feel like our relationship and our bond is so much stronger. And I'm excited with Connor now, 7 weeks out, starting to come to this dimension, and just looking forward to having an awareness of the depth that's possible with the connection with my family. And Of course, Monica, I feel like she's already known this. I shared this with her, and she's like, yeah, I'm so glad that you saw that. Well, welcome to the level, because she's such a deep human. That's where she resides. She's like the mermaid that swims at the bottom of the presence well.
Yeah, she's like, Lance, come on along whenever you're ready.
Welcome back, Lance. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's the biggest takeaway from this entire, what I'll call a hiatus or break or space that we took. And then there's been a lot of other exciting things. Like I did my first and second level 2 where Brett wasn't there. So Dr. Jordan Fairley and I got to do level 2s, and those were just deep experiences and amazing and very different. But just like level 1, when we started doing them without Brett, then we really see what was the element that Brett brought, and then what are the constituent parts of this level of training, and does it carry over? Can we share it at a similar level? Can people still have wonderful experiences? And so far, it's been the case. We're ramping up now to level 3, which is only our second time doing it, but just knowing the work that's been put in since the last time, and the deeper levels of understanding we all have as facilitators about what KTC is, what we're bringing, what we're trying to work toward, I'm excited to see what comes of that. And other than that, I mean, from a KTC perspective, it's been a lot of just level 1s happening, and our lead facilitators stepping up massively, and explorations getting off the ground, which has been really exciting. And life has continued to happen. So we're cruising, and I'm in the midst of my paternity leave still. It doesn't seem like I'm going to be taking a 6-month complete break. I've basically come back doing more working from home, marketing, building events, continuing to build relationships with the community, but really trying to focus on building Adrian and Mandy's practice. And Brett has offered to start coaching me a little bit, and meeting with him weekly and talking about source systems and lifestyle and design and things. I've been really stoked already, just the short time that I've worked with him, to redesign how I want to re-enter practice with a lot of intention. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited. I know a lot of people that have taken a camp with Brett hear him talk about how his finger starts to buzz when he's not adjusting. And right. I'm definitely itching for that. I get my hands on my family and the people that I love and care about when I see them. But not seeing the volume in practice like I was, I definitely feel the urge to just get my hands on people. And I'm stoked to get back. Yeah,
I'm excited for you too, just to have that, just again, another increased awareness and what that's going to do for your care, for the people that you serve, just to be able to bring that to the table. Just wanted to reflect a little bit and ask you a follow-up question on the space that you had on this, leave. It appears in, your life, Brett, even Dr. Jordan, it's like, it appears to be very little space, and there's something about that space that allows like creativity, and integration and just revelation, like breakthroughs that happen. And so it's just like going forward now, maybe you don't have as much of that space that you had during that 3-week break of no technology and like just a lot of alone time with your family and yourself. How pivotal do you think it is, like, going forward, to have some version of that where it's just you? Or, because I know being with your family does the same thing, but is there any space where it's like it's just you to allow for integration and breakthroughs to happen?
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge takeaway for me, is realizing that depth is there, making sure that I'm creating spaces where I'm accessing deeper levels of myself, deeper levels of connection with others. And I think it's really where I'm fortunate, because we've trained KTC, and KTC is all about connection over correction. So we've done so much of that training to realize, well, I've exercised the muscle of connecting with myself, and I can do a be love process with my son before I wake him up in the morning or have breakfast with him. Or so having that ability to drop in, like I'm about to put my hands on somebody, I can drop in before I have a conversation with Monica, drop in before I have a conversation with Levi. And so taking the moments to connect and reset into the present moment before stepping into those spaces, and also realizing that is what I was thinking before. I think it's still relevant, but seeing that the environment that I had created, where I removed what I basically see now as an interference, this social media, phone, like what is designed to be an addictive quality to it, It really does. It zaps some energy out of me. It takes some of my dopamine storage that I'm using on to interact with these things. And so now that's part of the redesign is now what is the ideal lifestyle? I've recently felt like I learned what it felt like to fly as a chiropractor, like taking this paternity leave, coming back into practice, not with hands-on because I'm leaving that space for Adrian and Mandy for the moment, but coming back in and building relationships and coming in and out. Taking Levi to school is a time that is uninterrupted. So from the moment he wakes up, like no cell phones, taking him to school, dropping him off, kissing him goodbye, that whole moment is an incredible, deeply present, uninterrupted time period. And then I go to work for a couple hours while he's in school, and then I get to pick him up in that time period when I'm picking him up until his nap time is also just completely protected. So that to me is the integration that I've been looking for. Instead of having it all kind of blend together, I'm realizing that organization in the body and evolution of our species has only become possible through compartmentalization. It wasn't until the mitochondria slipped into our cell and it had its own membrane separate from ours, where that now relationship between the two could feed into something bigger. And the compartmentalization within ourselves is the same thing in our lives. It's not that it's not integrated. It's just that if we lose the membranes that separate these separate containers, then they start to have an inefficiency and there's a wasted energy in that. And so in my life, I'm trying to set up some semi-permeable membranes that allow for some flex and adaptability, but also protect the activity that's happening within each of those containers. So yes, family time. Yes, time for my personal reflection and review and meditation and exercise and movement. Yes, practice. Even within practice, having the entrepreneur, the manager, and the technician, like those three levels have to also have their own compartmentalization. And I've always, originally when I got into the work-life integration thought process, I was thinking that having separation in those ways was separated and not integrated. But then after teaching that self-phys class at Life West and really diving in and recognizing the importance of compartmentalization, when I started to, that was when the seed got planted of realizing that the compartmentalization is an element of the integration. So yeah, that is now a big goal. Before I just start loading everything back on, how can I do it incrementally in a way that maintains some of the compartmentalization and kind of litmus test it as I go to make sure I'm maintaining the connection with my family.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what came to my mind. It's like you had this, like, able to step back a little bit, and then you have all these different things come to you. And it's like, if you didn't have that moment to have that space and be with your family and be able to look Levi in the eyes like that, and I would say your connection to him is extremely high even before that moment. But imagine if that didn't happen for another 10, 15 years, right? So it's just like, it's so crucial that we have these like moments of backing away a little bit and like just dedicating some time to reflection and having that integrated into our lives, like on a daily basis, I think is huge. But then even somehow on a quarterly basis or something, have it be a little bit bigger. Because you're right. I mean, it's so easy to just keep going and just have no space for that. But that was a big thing for me coming out of school now. It's like, on my Sundays, like I don't have this like test or this board exam or something that just occupies my brain. And it's just like now, even though on a schedule wise, I don't have a ton more time, but it's almost like space in my brain that's free. So when I'm like out of the office and choosing to be not in that state of mind, it's like, wow, this is awesome. I haven't had this forever. Because I felt like even high school and sports, like sports took up any other extra space. College sports, like, I should be working on training, or if I should on school. So it's like, it was just constant. Yeah. It's just like not normal for our brain to have that. But so that was a big takeaway for sure.
Is that something that you've integrated in as you've come back now? Is that like a Sundays is protected thing, or?
Yeah. So
I know you were doing morning pages for a while in the mornings to reflect and.
Yeah, but it was in some ways, it was almost like this thing I needed to do to get better. Like,
Yeah.
So it wasn't even the right headspace, I don't think.
Yeah.
But I
have to get creative. I have to be creative.
Yeah. So I noticed I did that, a lot through school. And now it's just like being able to go somewhere, going to the office, and then just compartmentalizing, there we go, my day has helped a ton. Like, I've scheduled times where I go to the climbing gym. There's like a sauna there. So it's just like, that is a really awesome space for me to have that. And then after practice on Saturdays, I'm in there 7 to 1. And then from like 1 through Saturday and then through Sunday, I'm out of it. And that like space has been really nice to connect with family, connect with friends, get out in nature. So yeah, that part has been awesome for me. Cool.
Nice, man. Stoked to hear it.
Yeah. Thanks, dude. All right.
I don't know if there's anyone that I know that worked harder in school than you. I imagine the hairs on Adrian's neck would stand up if he heard me say that. He's probably up there with you too. And
oh yeah, he definitely is. And a lot of, our crew for sure. But I appreciate that. But yeah, Adrian driving an hour pretty much, or getting up an hour before everyone else does for ninjas in the morning, driving from San Francisco to Hayward for 14 quarters.
Yeah, unreal.
A little shout out to him. But it's cool. So these last 10 minutes or so, I think we can have a takeaway action step for our listeners. And it was kind of cool. We both relatively recently had talked about a similar topic, and we'll kind of reflect back and forth. But I was at a seminar with a coaching group that our office is working with, and one of the things that really stuck with me is like, people are paying a tuition for a chiropractic education, and we're giving away the adjustment. And whether or not everyone agrees that we should be giving away the adjustment, but in kind of having that perspective of like, they're paying for your education, it like really allows me to have more responsibility from like every single word that comes out of my mouth in that interaction with somebody, and kind of taking them on this journey of what's possible with their health. It kind of built a lot of value around how I'm communicating with them. Mm-hmm. And I think you and Adrian and Mandy are kind of going through something similar. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that as well.
That's awesome. I hadn't heard about giving the adjustment away, and I don't know if I resonate with that, because I think that's also that's part of the curriculum. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a parallel curriculum happening. There's the outside in, the inside out, and I feel like what we say, what we do, the environment we create is all part of the educational curriculum happening from the outside in. But the adjustment is something that reconnects the brain and the body, and there's a whole nother learning process that happens there. Another piece you can think about is something that Norman Doidge talks a lot about, the neuroplasticity synaptogenesis guy, how movement and learning have to happen simultaneously. And it's the movement throughout the eons of our evolution that as we're looking for new environments, searching for food, hunting, gathering, building, we've been surveying the scene and learning about our environment as we've moved through it. And so as we get stiff, we can't create the chemical hormones and constituent parts of neural drive, and we can't learn as much. So we see less, hear less, process new, less information. And so I think that giving people the adjustment is as much of a part of the educational process. But I totally agree with you on what I call the chiropractic care-iculum. And that care-iculum, the curriculum of care, is 6 months at our office, is what we usually say for the initial investment. So it's not like you're going to buy a pair of Lululemon pants and they will last until they wear out and then they are no longer useful to you. This is something that every time you get the adjustment, you learn something about yourself. When you're here, we're talking to you about not just here's a nice supplement you can take for your health. It's like, here is a principle of life and health that if you understand this principle, you are empowered to make better decisions for the rest of your life. And because you have the empowerment there, and it becomes a part of who you are, and you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, then those people in your life are better off and healthier and more connected to themselves by being around you. and the children. I mean, it's like, this is something that I think it transcends. It's like anybody, if you think about the first person in a family to become a doctor, first person in a family to get a college degree, like the first person in a family to be under chiropractic care for 6 months or for any period of time, like they will be learning a lifestyle and principles of life that the family may not have been aware of before, and it can shift the quality of an entire family's life.
And just generations going forward after that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it gets pretty wild there. Like you can everything you think, say, and do, the lives of millions, right?
Right.
And but you can use the metaphor of a college education in a family and how that can impact the quality of lives for everyone in the family. I know for me, I always knew that I would be a doctor of something because I had a doctor, Aunt Rebecca, that PhD. Oh, well, Aunt Rebecca has a PhD. Why wouldn't I go get a PhD or whatever? It ends up being a DC, and but that would not have been possible for me had she not made that decision to go do that and then be speaking to me about college, because no one else in my family was talking to me about college. I didn't even know you were supposed to apply for college. I got rejected by the only college I applied to because I applied too late, and I was like, oh, I was supposed to get good grades in high school? Jeez. Well, that's like
good enough.
Yeah, the rich dad, poor dad concept. It's also like the educated dad, uneducated dad concept, and it's the connected dad, unconnected dad, or connected family, unconnected family concept is it's not a pay for an adjustment, and it's not just pay for one lesson, but it is, I don't go to college for the experience of college. I go to college for the investment in myself that will hopefully produce a higher quality of life moving forward. And I think the same, like what we're talking about here, is it's the curriculum, the education, it's the transformation that someone's going to make in the office with the adjustments and the care and the curriculum, that they will now be able to make better decisions moving forward.
Yeah, totally agree with you, man. And something that came up is like setting these expectations and agreements early on in their care so they can agree on what to expect. And that was another big takeaway I had, because even with table talk, like that's something that hit and miss sometimes. Often it can be awkward initiating it in a place from just being genuine and in questions, but still being efficient with your care. But if it's something that we go over in the very beginning, whether it's your doctor report or report of findings or whatever it is, it's like, okay, like I'm expecting this education constantly. Yeah. And so it keeps like the conversations on point, because you've already set those up with people. So it's like you don't get caught up. See the Dodgers lose down 0-2. Like, yeah. It keeps it very directed.
Yeah. Return on investment, I think, is a big piece of even that concept, helping people realize that how they spend their time, energy, and money. It is the natural law to make things as efficient as possible, to take what energy exists and to use that energy as far as possible to get the organism's needs met in the future. And anytime there's an energy leak in our body, the same thing that decreases performance increases the risk of injury. And in our financial life, we don't spend money on things that don't create more value or the opportunity for us to make more money or to get more time. And similarly in practice, I think if people are just coming in and paying me for a service, and it's just an exchange, and by the time my service is finished, the benefit is no longer lasting, that's not an investment that creates something moving forward. Mm-hmm. And I think there's few things in healthcare that have a higher return on investment than a holistic, vitalistic chiropractic curriculum, because that is something that changes the way they see the world, and now they become a part of this process of nature, and they're not separate from, and they get to participate, and it can be life-changing for somebody, even to just think about that, just to think about time, energy, and money being similar currencies, and that how they invest each of them should have a large return. It's much different than going and taking a medication. Like, yes, that medication will only cost $5 when your adjustment might be $95. But how long do you think that medication is going to last? Probably 8 hours.
Right. Exactly.
And there's a side effect on the other end of it because it's not a very efficient mechanism. Whereas getting movement in your body will also decrease the pain because movement and pain travel, but there's a side effect of that that's positive, and you can take the extra positivity of that energy that was created to reinvest, and now you're creating dividend return like that.
That's exponential.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Love it, man. All right, dude. Let's give a quick recap of an update on KTC. Just a few minutes of big ones.
And really quick, I also want to just give people a takeaway. So if you think about your care with people, you set goals for people. In our office, we do like the pseudo source systems. And so we have 6-month care plans. And the reason for that is the connective tissue cycle. So that's what we talk about. We really want to reorganize the body. It's neuroplasticity. And then we have musculoskeletal change, connective tissue, 6 months. So at 6 months, we're going to try to reestablish a new goal. And because of that, our curriculum is 6 months. And so we're able to, from the start to the finish, here's the things we want them to understand. Here's the things we want them to experience physically. Here's the goals of care and the goals of the educational process. And so whatever it is for you, if you do 12 visits, okay, by the end of 12 visits, what do you want people to walk away with? And this is like building educational programs. I was doing my teaching credential. You build a rubric and you identify what are the learning outcomes that you want. And then you reverse engineer the actual curriculum from that. You don't start with the curriculum and say, these are the things that are important, and I'm going to teach these all these things. It's more like, what's the one thing I hope that they get? The one takeaway from this whole 6-month thing. And then if they could have 2 more, then what would be the other 2? And then if they had 5, what would those 5 be? And try not to make more than 10. And choose those things that you would hope someone would understand about their body, their life, their health, their healing at the end of their care. And whether they choose to continue that care, I imagine they would if they understood the things you're talking about. But at this stage in their care, whatever interval that is for you, what do you hope they learn? And then reverse engineer from there. And you can do email education on top of video education, on top of talking, on top of events, on top of sharing resources, having artwork or articles on your walls. Everything about their experience with you is part of that process. So you don't have to always try to share something by verbalizing it during their care visit, because you have 6 months of time with them and you can slow drip it all in. As long as it's designed, it'll be most efficient and therefore most effective.
That's awesome, man. And I imagine we're going to be kind of hitting this throughout multiple conversations, because I think it's so huge, just mastering this process, because they were talking about a study that they did, and they asked people why they left, their chiropractor, and they're like, kind of got, it's the same thing. I got out of pain, and yeah, I went in there, got adjusted and went out, went in there, got adjusted and went out. And there was no journey, and they stopped going. Yeah. So they didn't really know why. They're just like, I was kind of doing the same thing. Like, clearly they weren't understanding maybe the intentions of what was possible, or, the expectations that were set up from that chiropractor. But I'm really drawn to having these conversations, because it's like, how can we continue to educate and have them understand the bigness and then choose, like, at least we're giving those opportunities, and then have them choose, what they want. Because in the beginning, I think most people are like, they're in there for a certain goal, and we have to acknowledge that. But then at the same time, showing them the bigness of it, and then allowing them to understand, and then make a decision after that.
Yeah.
Because you're right. They would most likely continue like a lifelong care if they really understood the bigness of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Any teacher is trying to light a fire under a student's ass. And if they're not, then I don't think that the teacher understands what they're really doing.
Right.
Even though I said earlier that a lot of our education is outside in, the only way that it's effective is if our outside stimulus creates an internal process that continues after we've finished. That's it.
Yep. All right, man. So that was a good takeaway for everybody. What about some need to knows for the KTC update?
Well, for brevity of this episode, I'll just drop in Ben 3 this year, our only one for the year, and that's in November, November 16th, 17th, 18th, out in Atlanta, and people can register at adjustingninjas.com/events. They can go onto the community page, the Facebook group, the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook group, if they want to join in, if they're not members already, to ask questions about it. There's been a lot of sharing more of the details of what that event means. But even before that, if they are just getting into the community, there's a level 1 camp, Kairos training camp out in Davenport, Iowa. And I think if you haven't experienced it yet, we invite you to. And again, you can jump into any of the community pages or groups to ask questions about what this all entails, why level 1, 2, 3. And we've talked about it ad nauseum in previous episodes, but it feels like we haven't done it in so long that I feel like there's been a lot of people who have joined the community recently and who may not even heard of these podcasts, because we did 100 doctors did a level 1 out in Puerto Rico. Wow. We're not even going to talk about that right now because we'll go into the rabbit hole, and what we're going to Argentina and different Colombia. So a lot of opening happening in the Kairos training culture community. Cairo Europe kicked off. So Kairos training culture in Europe, not Cairo Europe. But Damiano and Lenny and David out there did their first camp in Odense. And that went great. And they have other camps scheduled. Our 2019 calendar is coming out pretty quickly. So I'll share that once it's, or someone will share it once it's available and confirmed. But a lot of exciting things. I think for now, if people are wanting to jump in and get involved, level 1's happening in Davenport. Level 3 is happening in Atlanta in November. And we changed the qualifications for those to be eligible for level 3. So either you have to have done a level 2 or 3 level 1s. And the reason for that is that level 3's movement is not a progression of intensity past level 2. So you don't have to be able to swing kettlebells and lift heavy weight to do level 3, but you do have to be able to be present. And because we train the presence at level 1, if someone has been in the community and culture long enough to have gone through 3 level 1s, there is a duration of time that they've been training that I think we are able to accept them, and they'll be able to feel the things at the depths that we're feeling at level 3, at the spinal cord level, the cerebrospinal fluid pumping, the cranials, all the stuff that takes a lot of presence, and your body can't be involved in that conversation. So if you can hold a squat, you can be present, you can start to notice the subtle ripples. That's what is required for level 3. So we've changed the requirements.
That sounds good, brother. This has been an amazing time getting to catch up. So excited, like I mentioned in the beginning, to get rolling again and have more consistent conversations and getting these episodes out as often as possible.
Cool, dude. Yeah. Welcome back to Dr. Ray. I'm stoked to be interviewing you pretty quickly and sharing the depths of who you are. You've been hiding behind that mic long enough.
I know, right?
I'm going to expose
safe over here.
Awesomeness. I know how badass you are, but a lot of people here just see the doctor on the world.
That just cut out there for a second. So it was just like, hump.
Well, I'm just saying how excited I am to interview you. You're humble Ray Daniels on the mic here at the Artful Chiropractor, but I know that how much of an incredible human, athlete, chiropractor, doctor, human you are. I'm excited to get to step behind the interviewer box and put you on the pedestal for a while.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate that, and I'm looking forward to it as well.
Cool.
All right, man. Till next time. Peace,
Talk
dude.
to you soon. Peace. Out.
All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we would love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out the artfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.